Members, we have a quorum and we've reached the appointed hour. The meeting is now called to order. Agenda item number 1, confirmation minutes of the previous meeting held on the 10th of November. The minutes have been sent to members. Secretary has not received any proposed amendment. Shall we confirm the minutes, please? If there is no objection, minutes confirmed. Item 2, information papers issued since the last meeting. The Secretariat issued 4 information papers, and they are on the agenda. Under agenda item number 3, we will discuss the concerns paid by members towards the ATV, which are expressed in the letters. The date of next meeting and items of discussion. The briefing of the policy address has been scheduled to the 19th of January at 8:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. We are to hear the related policy initiatives under the portfolio of the SCD. Notice has been issued to members on the 19th of December. The next regular meeting is on the 9th of February at 2:30 p.m. in this room. The administration proposes to discuss just one item, which is an update on the work of Create Hong Kong, which is the first item on the list of outstanding items of discussion. This will be one of the discussion items, if there is no objection. Let us then deal with the letters sent in by Mr. Christopher CHUNG, Mr. Wong Yuk-man, and also Ms. Claudia Mo, dated the 31st of December last year, 2nd of January this year, and 2nd of January this year, respectively. That's in respect of the operation of ATV and related matters. I have already referred the letters to the administration, and there is a written reply by the administration for members' reference. The panel may consider including this item on the agenda for the next meeting. Mr. Wong Yuk-man has indicated that he wants to speak. Well, if we drag it on to the next meeting, that will be quite some time from now, at least a month. And there is also the briefing of the policy address in between. I don't understand the administration's attitude. Well, they just say that they've reached the rules and they follow the matter up. We will make sure that they comply with the rules. Now, they have only paid half of their salaries for November, no salary for December, and January is coming. It's not just the summonses issued by the Labor Department which can be resolved. It's not just an ordinary business selling peanuts. The ATV is making use of airwaves, and the license can only be given and renewed by CE in Council. The summonses are only for July, a delay in paying salaries. And they pay just half of the salaries of November, and no salaries for December, and no salaries, I believe, for January. They are in financial in a difficult financial situation. They are in a critical situation, and their shareholders have disappeared. The matter has come to that stage. The administration is dragging its feet. Can we drag our feet? It's about salaries, which is the first issue. The issuing of summons is just going through the motions. It cannot solve the problem. The second question is about the license. Our understanding is that November, the CA, Communications Authority, didn't recommend renewing the license of ATV. And now the EXCO is dragging its feet. How long is it going to drag? Even if there is a buyer, how can you get a buyer? How can you continue? You have to announce that either you announce you give it a license. For those who intend to buy ATV, can discuss with ATV. But if you don't give the license, sorry, the speaker's not coming through. You can just put up the license for application by other parties. There shouldn't be any delay to this matter. It's not that I am the only one raising this issue. You have to ask them to come to a meeting next week. They shouldn't drag their feet. Of course, you blame it on CY Leung, you blame it on the EXCO, then let us put pressure on CY Leung and the EXCO. Now, many people are suffering from no salaries paid by their boss or the employer. I'll give 2 minutes to each member to deal with the question of when should the meeting be held. Ms. Emily Lau. Madam Chairman, I agree that we should get a time slot and have a meeting as soon as possible. The administration has to explain, and ATV should also be asked to come along. And the CA, Communications Authority, should also be asked to come. We have to find out whether the ATV has breached licensing conditions. It seems that no one cares about it. The LegCo should call a meeting as soon as possible, get all the parties concerned to speak. If you are to give a license to ATV, then there will be another occupation movement. The administration has to explain. Mr. Charles Peter Mock. Madam Chairman, I agree with Mr. Wong Yuk-man and Ms. Emily Lau. It isn't just about paying wages or salaries. That's outside our portfolio. They are making use of public resources. According to the original timetable, by this hour, an announcement should have been made whether the license would be renewed or not. Now, there are rumors whether the ATV's license, which will soon expire, be extended because a 12-month notice is required. The administration has to explain. The CA and even the EXCO has to explain. We should call a meeting ASAP. We shouldn't just sit there and watch the EXCO to extend the license of ATV automatically. I agree with all said before me, including the 2 members who have sent in their letters, whether that's the issue of wages in arrears or whether it is in the public interest. I think public interest is very important. There are only 2 free TV licenses in Hong Kong, and the administration just sit there and doing nothing. And that's nothing. It doesn't say anything on licensing. It doesn't say anything on wages in arrears. The government, even if the administration doesn't do anything, we should get the parties concerned and ask them to give an account of the matter. Or you just allow one man to sit there being indecisive or not making any decision, and we don't know what is being done behind the scene. I really ask the Secretariat to arrange a meeting so that there can be the parties can come and give a full account of that. Ms. Anne Cheng, concerning the wages in arrears issue, in respect of the ATV, people are watching that very closely, and the shareholders have put in a lot of money. At the present stage, they have the ability to continue to support ATV. Can that be continued? We should pay attention to this. Shouldn't we issue a letter to ATV expressing our concern, expressing the concern of this panel? Is it possible to get the shareholders or even the persons responsible or persons in charge to give an account. Well, Chairman, we are asking the administration to explain, not asking the shareholders. The shareholders have all disappeared. Mr. Wong, it is the time for Ms. Claudia Mo. Madam Chairman, this is a free license given to the ATV by the government. The ATV is using public assets. A public asset, not government's asset. The administration has to explain on the renewal of license by ATV. ATV has already breached existing licensing conditions. Technically speaking, the CA can revoke the ATV's license. Many are working for the ATV. The CA is therefore caught in a difficult situation, but the CA has to explain to the public how this mess is going to end. If you renew the license, it will only lead to a riot. It will even lead to a riot. Now they've cut the news programs. That's in breach of the licensing conditions. We asked the administration to come and explain. As for shareholders, whether they have money or they have difficulty, they don't have enough cash. After all, they are not going to pay. And what's the point of asking them to come and explain? Chairman, you may find that there is no time within this week, but within next week there should be an emergency meeting to discuss how to deal with the mess of the ATV. There's no more member wants to speak. We have heard 5 members who have spoken, and they asked to arrange a meeting as early as possible. We will ask the Secretariat to liaise with the CA, the administration, and also the management of the ATV to see if they want to come. As you all know, we have very tight schedules, and according to our experience, it's difficult to get the chairman of the CA to come to a meeting. But once a meeting is arranged, we'll inform you the date. Now we ask for a special meeting. Yes, I understand that. If we can get a time slot, a meeting room, and if we can fix a meeting with the CA, then we will have a special meeting. If we can't get it fixed, get a timetable, get a meeting fixed next week, then we will arrange it for the next meeting.
We will try our best to schedule this special meeting. Let's have a special meeting. So let's move on to agenda item 4, and that is a review on the regulation of person-to-person telemarketing calls, P2P calls. But I'll invite the Secretary and the administration team in, please. First of all, the Secretary, please take us through the paper, and then I'll hand over the floor to members. Members, the government enacted the Unsolicited Electronic Messages Ordinance in 2007, but then having considered that most of the business enterprises in Hong Kong are small and medium enterprises, they rely on electronic communications as one of the major means of marketing. So P&P calls were excluded from the regulation, but some people believe that the P2P calls cause nuisance. So at the end of 2010, the administration encouraged the trade associations of the 4 sectors that were found to have made most of the P2P calls, finance, insurance, telecommunications, and call centers, to draw up their voluntary codes of practice and to encourage the members to abide by the codes of practice. The administration has been working closely with the relevant industry associations to gain a better understanding on how the code of practice is implemented. And also, we noticed that CA and the OFCA have received quite a number of inquiries and complaints. And in fact, in recent years, the numbers have been declining, and that, I believe, to a certain extent reflects the impact of the industry codes with P2P calls. But we note that in the community, there have been a number of discussions on P2P calls, and there have been suggestions on how to regulate P2P calls. Towards such course of regulation, we have an open mind. But then we think that this is a very complex issue and involves the use of personal data, nuisance caused by the calls, limiting both legitimate marketing activities and free flow of information. So any types of regulation or enhanced regulation will affect the livelihood of some tens of thousands of people who engage in legitimate marketing activities, as well as commercial transactions that are facilitated by the relevant marketing activities by these SMEs. The effectiveness of the regulatory measures also needs to be addressed. Therefore, when exploring the way forward in respect of the regulation of P2P calls, we should be careful and prudent. So, having considered all factors, we think that before mapping out the way forward, we should have more information. And in fact, we have commissioned a consultant to conduct a survey to solicit views of the public, the business sector, and the industry on the regulation of P2P calls, as well as the employment and business situations of industry. The administration will also take the opportunity to obtain an update on the regulatory measures taken by other jurisdictions on P2P calls. We expect the survey to be completed in the first half of 2015, and in light of the results, the administration will carefully deliberate on the way forward, including whether to conduct a consultation exercise on the regulation of P2P calls and the specific mode of doing so. So we welcome members to raise questions on the above matters. Thank you, Secretary. 2 members have raised their hands to wanting to speak. Charles Mok, Wong Yuk-man, and Chung. Yu Si-wing, Ma Fong Kwok Tam Yu Chung, Christopher CHUNG, and the Vice Chairman. 4 minutes in the first round, please. Mr. Charles Mok. Madam Chair, on the regulation of P2P calls, I have been following up on the issue for a long time, and we want to see the government tightening the regulation. At least a consultation should be conducted, but the government all along has been saying there is no need. I've raised the question many times, and the government said time and again that there is no need. The government said this time round that there will be a survey and then a public consultation will be conducted. I hope that that really can be done. Well, the regulation or the ordinance came into force in 2007, and since then, perhaps the administration can give us the figures later on. As far as I understand, the number of prosecutions is very low. It's just one. The number is just one, and the prosecution was also unsuccessful. So to anyone, this ordinance is ineffective. Not just on the P2P calls, but rather the entire ordinance needs to be reviewed. Now, particularly on P2P calls, the Secretary said that the issue is a complex one, and these are legitimate marketing activities, and we should not stop them. Well, whether it is legitimate or not, I mean, it's your decision or ruling. And for many legitimate market activities, many people found them creating a nuisance. So that's why people wanted to make it illegitimate. And there should be a tightening up of the regulation, and they should not be making use of the law to cause nuisance to people. So I hope the administration should not play around with words, saying that there isn't any problem, these are activities in order and so on. Actually, the Privacy Commissioner in the summer of last year, around half a year ago, made a suggestion. And perhaps you can assign specific privileges of phone numbers for such P2P calls, so that the recipients can identify that these are the P2P calls, and they can choose not to receive the calls. I And Greg So, you responded immediately after the Privacy Commissioner made that recommendation. So now, would you like to give us any indication on such suggestions, any views on how to tighten up the regulation? Well, the Privacy Commissioner made that recommendation. You asked him to do it under the Privacy Ordinance. I found that unreasonable because all these telecom marketing activities should be governed by UEMO. And how come that the PTP course should fall under the ambit of another department? So that won't solve the problem of nuisance caused to people. Thank you, Mr. Mok, for your question. This time we will conduct a survey, and we would like to do a comprehensive review, including the Privacy Commissioner's suggestion. So the survey this time will look at, we solicit views of the public and also the business sector and the industry. For example, the call centers, what do they think? When they make calls, what actually happens? I mean, this is the kind of thing that we will look at. We will do a comprehensive review. And once we've got the results of the survey, then we'll be able to effectively come up with a proposal on whether to tighten up or step up the regulation and what kind of measures are needed. So we have to gather information from all sides. Now, with regard to law enforcement, there might be difficulties. As I said in the beginning, this is a complex issue. If we want to enforce the law effectively, we first have to decide what do we mean by telemarketing calls? How can evidence be gathered? Now, the Privacy Commissioner said that calls made from overseas, for these calls, it's difficult to enforce the law against them. So we want to have a full understanding of the situation before we decide on the way forward. Mr. Raymond Wong. Thank you, Madam Chair. P2P calls. This subject has been discussed or deliberated on for a long, long time. The government has been procrastinating. In the UK, there is already a legally binding register system. Those organizations which have not been authorized to make calls. And in Canada, there was also this regulation enacted in 2008, and they are now studying how to combat calls from overseas. In Singapore, DNC registration system and any unregistered numbers should not be used for telemarketing. And the highest penalty is 1 million Singaporean dollars. And to the government, Hong Kong government, the words they should be prudent, careful. They would commission a consultant to study. All these sound very, outrageous to me. There have been examples of deception. You're talking about free flow of information. And you talk about employment issues and freedom of enterprises and so on. Hong Kong should be a competitive society, and we should not be putting limitations on the SMEs. But actually, a lot of these marketing activities are not being undertaken by SMEs. The 4 industry associations, undertake not to breach the law, but then the code of practice is not legally binding, and they're still carrying on with such activities. We have also studied on the issue ourselves. You said that a number of jobs will be lost. These jobs are there because the cost is very low, and if people can do transactions on one single call, through one single call, then they can make up for, they can cover the costs of a number of calls. So, and some organizations are also outsourcing the operations. These jobs are very low-paid jobs. Are you saying that these people will not be able to fend for themselves after they have lost these jobs? All these remarks come without any evidence. Would you be giving us relevant figures? No, you would not be providing this because you said that this is commercial secret. So what kind of grounds or evidence do you have to support your saying that it has to do with livelihood issue, promoting jobs, and so on? And actually, all these people working in the industry are part-time jobs, low-paid jobs. They have high mobility. And you said that some 20,000 people's livelihood will be affected. I think you are telling a lie. And I am infuriated because you said that you are not going to amend the regulation. I think we are not just giving you adequate pressure to get things changed. Last time, Wang Ting-kwang moved a CSA in relation to the UEMO, and he said, or he moved that if the video messages without pre-recorded or synthesized elements were to be regulated, except where the messages involved P2P interactive communications made to a previous or current business or client relationship between the caller and the recipient. That amendment was not moved, and 7 years have lapsed. What have you done? You are using the same excuse not to amend the legislation. I think this is very infuriating. Dr. N. Chang.
Chairman, we can see that the numbers of complaints from 2012 to 2014 rose from 2,000 to 1,600 and 1,200, declining. The number was declining. That was a good thing. It means the nuisance declined. The Commissioner on privacy did a survey by the Hong Kong U. 99% of the recipients received such P2P calls, and it was considered to be a big nuisance. The administration, therefore, has to pay attention to this. Now, in 2008-2009, about 20,000 people were engaging in such marketing activities. They helped in making telephone calls. That was in 2009. Now it's 2014. Your survey was done 6 years ago. Maybe there are only 2,000 doing the job. So the administration, can the administration give us the latest data? Chairman, I'm glad that Ms. Chang raised this issue in respect of the 99% complaints that there was a nuisance. I wrote to the Commissioner on Privacy to clarify this point. In the report by the Commissioner, the 99% referred to the convenience course. About 80% felt that 80.5% found that was inconvenient. And among this 80.5%, 99% found that a nuisance. Not 99% of the recipients or interviewees, but 80.5% of the interviewees, and 99% out of the 80.5% of the interviewees. So it is about 79 to 80% of the interviewees. In fact, the number was similar to the survey done to another survey done earlier. There was no significant increase. I confirm that understanding with the Commissioner on Privacy. And because of this, we want to have a more comprehensive and specific survey on these numbers. Now, concerning the survey, whether we would learn from the experience overseas regulatory arrangements. We have to consider the study will look at the effectiveness of regulatory regimes in the past world. Well, he spent 2 minutes. I only spoke for 1 minute 11 seconds. I asked, how many people are engaging in this business? You only have the number in 2008, 2009. There were 20,000. Now it's 2014. Do you have any new data? 1. of the objectives is to look at the latest employment situation. In this regard, the survey is done in 2009. According to understanding, there were about 20,000 people in this job. According to understanding, many of those working are disabled persons. And if we strengthen our regulation, we have to consider what is the impact on them. And we looked into that in the survey. Mr. Wu Si-wing. Yes, I support regulation. I was harassed by many such calls. If we regulate P2P calls, that may have an impact on jobs. That may have an impact on market activities. Promotion work does help to stimulate the market. The government has to consider all this. If you ask the general public, they will support passing a law to regulate this. Will you consider how many jobs will be affected if you regulate it more tightly? In 2009, there were about 20,000 working in the trade. With your new regulation regime, how many people will be rendered jobless? Will that reduce the business activity in this market? And what will be the negative impacts? I hope the administration can find out the direction before we consult on legislation. And I also want to know whether the administration will increase the penalty. So far, few have been penalized. Is it because of the small penalty handed out, or is it because of lack of prosecution? I just want to know whether the administration will also consider these matters in the next round of consultation. Well, many aspects are affected. I do receive such calls, and I use my way to deal with that. Now, if according to the code, if you ask them not to call you again, you can do so. You can follow the code, and I did ask the person not to call again. Many called, and it is difficult to know whether your name has been deleted from their list. Our present survey will be more comprehensive. Apart from asking the citizens, ordinary citizens, we also look at the trade. We also consider the impact on the business. So we really want to get the latest information to deal with the matter. Whether it is a do not call list or other measures, we have to consider how can they be effective. And people do have a view and they on the matter, and they do feel that it's a nuisance. We really need to deal with this by minimizing the inconvenience without undermining seriously the marketing activities. I just want to know whether the administration is inclined towards conducting a consultation or a survey or what. We'll conduct a survey. We've already got a consultant to conduct a comprehensive survey. Depending on the findings, if need be, we will do a consultation on, say, the regime or strengthening the regime. If need be, there will be a consultation. Do you have a position? Well, let's look at the situation before we decide on the way forward. Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. I receive these nuisance calls very often. In the past several weeks, just from the financial sector, I received over 60 such calls. the DAB, I beg pardon, the DBS Bank. I have to name it. I receive 400 to 500 calls from their banks, and every time I ask my name to be deleted from their bank, the list of their bank. The code is useless. You tell them not to call you again, they call you again. I don't know how the code is enforced. I just find the code useless. And the number of calls per week is more than 3.8 per week. And when I am staying overseas, I also receive calls when my phone is in the roaming mode, and I'm also interrupted when I receive calls at the middle of a meeting. They come with the prefix of 2 and 3. And I really don't. I want to know whether a prefix can be added to such calls. Now, if you say the calls are not made in Hong Kong, the calls are made outside Hong Kong, but they use a local call as an indication. What can the administration do to deal with that? Well, I face the same problem. I agree with Mr. Ma. Well, I have mentioned the complexity of the matter. If such calls are made from overseas, even if you have a law to stop it, there are difficulties to enforce the law. In the privacy ordinance, if the company has business in Hong Kong, you can go after it, but it is still difficult to enforce the law. If we are to step up regulation, we also need to consider the complexity of enforcing the law. You mentioned the banks, the financial services sector. Recently, the DAB did a survey. Even if the caller claimed to be calling on behalf of a certain financial institution, if you call the financial institution, that financial institution said that it hadn't authorized that person to call you. And that enhanced. I'm not doing advertisement for the DAB.
呢啲電話嚟咧，係可能有啲。
The DAB also and the police also warned people that there might be a chance of fraud. Now, after the comprehensive survey, we will have a better understanding of the situation, and then we will target at the problems. As for frauds, they cannot be dealt with by a law or just a single piece of legislation. We are talking about reducing nuisance to a practical and minimum level. They do have numbers from which you can trace, where they have numbers beginning with 2 or 3. Well, when you receive such calls, if they claim to be coming from a certain financial institution, if they are in they do have a code, and you can complain to the institution or the trade association so as to follow the matter up. Mr. Tam Yu Chung, I'm a victim too. When I see the number, I will not just I just don't pick it up. But some calls may not be promotion calls or advertising calls. When you're very busy, when there is a call, you really don't know whether to pick it up or not. It's really a nuisance. Mr. Wong Ten Kong finds it extremely an extreme nuisance, but he is chairing another meeting. He is not able to be present today to give his view. But I really urge the administration to do something about it and speed up the process. Concerning these P2P marketing calls, they are mainly done by the finance, insurance, telecommunications, and call centers. Mr. Ma just mentioned a bank. from 2010, they have set up a code practice on P2P calls, but they were in the past. They are voluntary, and if they are voluntary, it is not binding. They are not binding, and there is no deterrent. Will the administration make reference to the code and then set up a mandatory code to bind the relevant trades? Has the administration considered that? Well, that's exactly what we want to do. We would look at the study results, and then we will target at the problems. The member mentioned 4 trades: finance, insurance, telecommunications, and call centers. They account for 90% of such calls. We hope that they can have a code to practice or an industry code. This is a voluntary regulatory mechanism. The problem continues. There is a certain degree of nuisance. After the survey, we have a better understanding of the issue. We can target the problems. If need be, we can strengthen our policy. And we can also make reference to other measures which are effective, though they may be outside the code. We do receive such P2P calls. They are not just promoting a call. Apparently, they make a call. They have a present for you. They want to conduct a survey. And then in the process, they may do some marketing. And sometimes an opinion survey company may call you and seek your opinions. You may be a client of the institution, and in the process of discussion, there is certain marketing activity. How can you define whether it is a marketing call or a marketing institution? You have to pin it down very clearly in the law, and there are difficulties. We will have to consider a series of issues. According to my experience, well, I just hang up the phone when I heard the second sentence. They say, hello. Of course, he doesn't know me. I just asked him not to call me again. I really don't know the content of the marketing activity. Perhaps the administration will think harder on this. I'm studying the issue. Perhaps I'm studying the issue, therefore I listen for a longer period of time.
Perhaps our members should listen a bit longer to understand what they're talking or selling. Mr. Christopher CHUNG. Thank you, Madam Chair. Today, many members of the public are inconvenienced by such calls. Every day I receive such a call, even 2 to 3 times such calls. Perhaps my phone number is easy to memorize. When we have business meetings and we're overseas, we do receive such calls, and a lot is so very irritating. And that I think the administration should think about how to further regulate. But according to their statistics, the number of complaints from 2012 to 2014 has dropped. Why? Well, the Hong Kong user survey has given us some other different results. Is it because the people who think that there is losers to complain because the government wouldn't be able to offer any help at all, so they give up on complaining? Now, the secretary said that some 20,000 people's jobs will be affected if we regulate. I think that's it's an exaggeration. Have you made an assessment recently on how these 20,000 people will be affected? Are we trying just to make remarks to scare you? Well, these are figures from 2009, and we want to find out the latest situation, hence the commissioning of the survey. Well, is it the case that we can't do anything now? No, that's not the case. Well, in fact, there are so many apps in the market which can be downloaded into your mobile phones, which can, to a certain extent, resolve the problem. And in the industry codes, you can ask for your number to be put on the do not call register, and they should not call again. And thirdly, and actually you can use your smartphones to record the numbers, and then you can reject the calls in the future from such a phone number. So this is a kind of passive approach, but at least you can. This is something that you can do. The industry has been telling us that many disabled people are working in the industry. If we go for regulation, then we won't be able to regulate calls made from overseas. So, well, if we regulate local calls, will that affect the livelihood of these disabled people? Mr. Zhang, well, many of these telemarketers are young people, and they do not have much work experience, and they may have a low education attainment. All they want is a job, so hence they join the industry. And these young people also may be verbally abused by the recipients. Young people working in industry may lose confidence in their future, career future, if they do this kind of work. So can you ask the industry to be more innovative in doing telemarketing so that these young people working in the trade can have upward social mobility? And I think that works better for the young people. Well, Madam Chair, we are almost have full employment, low unemployment rate. If we can have, well, if we further regulate and affect their jobs, we try to minimize the impact on the lives of these workers in the industry. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, just now, many members said that the government has not been positively dealing with the problem and they're unhappy about it. Well, I would say that the government is now being resolute, and then they try to commission a consultant to do a survey showing that they really find that it is a serious problem. There may be a certain percentage of people in the survey saying that they find such calls a nuisance, and in the surveys, 80% of the people or respondents found that there is a nuisance. And I think it goes to show that the problem is serious. Like the secretary, I do receive such nuisance calls every day. And in the footnote, there is this figure, 20,000 people are engaged in this P2P call activities. And the secretary said that in the future survey, there will be an update and there will be a survey on the number. And actually, I would like to point out that some of these calls are made from overseas. And actually, many call stations are located in some of the places outside of Hong Kong because of lower labor costs. So the call services are provided from overseas. So I have doubts on the so-called very serious impact on the livelihood of people of the employees in Hong Kong. I don't believe that there are so many employees working in the industry, and after all, I don't think that this should be a long-term career for people, as mentioned by some colleagues. Sometimes I find it quite merciless to hang up because these are the workers, young people, and their sort of self-esteem may be hurt if we hang up the calls. So we should reprimand companies doing such telemarketing calls. Well, these companies are not SMEs. They are actually big banks, big companies in the insurance and finance sectors. I think they should not be doing this, or else their image will be tarnished. So I would like to pose this question to the Secretary. Now that you will be commissioning a very detailed survey, would you also be covering this aspect, i.e., whether under the UEMO people still find nuisance caused by course other than P2P course? There have been newspaper articles saying that the tutorial centers are sending a large number of SM ads to people. These are not P2P course, and these cause a great nuisance. So now that you are conducting this survey, would you also cover that aspect as well? Actually, we've signed the contract with the consultant, and we're just limiting the survey to P2P course. So at this stage, it's quite impossible to expand the scope of the survey to cover other services regulated under the UEMO. We can use some other avenues to study those. You are right in pointing out that we should allow young people to move upwards socially, and that will help in Hong Kong's overall economic development. Next, Mr. Ronnie Tong. Madam Chair, looking back in 2006, we scrutinized the unsolicited electronic message ordinance. At that time, the Democrats were very strong, saying that a P2P course should be regulated, and the pro-establishment camp was supporting the administration in objecting to that. And the administration saying at that time that there were several thousand people employed in the industry, and then their livelihood should not be affected. Well, I have reservation on that kind of stance. Well, the larger the industry gets, the greater the nuisance it is, and the more impossible it is for us to phase out industry or such activities. I think this logic doesn't hold water. I think the nuisance caused is so great, unprecedentedly great. Now, when we scrutinized the UEMO, well, we received 2 to 3 calls per month, but now we received 1 to 2 calls per day. Every time someone calls, I will have to block it, and then my blocking list gets longer and longer. And this industry doesn't work at all, because some 85–90% of people do not receive such calls, or they promptly block such calls whenever they are made. So why is it that we are allowing such nuisance activities to go on? Secretary, it's exactly because we are allowing such a P2P course that we are seeing so much illegal transactions of telephone numbers. And actually, our telephone numbers get circulated widely in the community. Now, if we just ban such activities, I think you will enhance the protection of the privacy of people's telephone numbers. So because you are allowing such calls to be made, so people are willing to pay for buying our telephone numbers. So, Secretary, you are still saying that you will go on studying and see how many people will be livelihood will be affected and so on. I get very disappointed. Now, if the administration is really keen in helping people to get jobs, well, the number 20,000 people are not a great number. I believe that these people will get some other jobs. They will not be on CSSA. I don't believe that will be the case. So, Secretary, please don't give us excuses. I think your logic is very staggering. The greater the nuisance is, the more unlikely or impossible for us to phase out the activities. Well, Secretary, as I said many times, we are open-minded, and we know well that these telemarketing calls cause nuisance. If we just make remarks like those, but then we don't look at the whole picture, the interest of the industry, the business, and what the industry is doing to provide jobs to the community, then that would not be good. So I think we should conduct a comprehensive survey. Mr. Tong referred to the transaction of personal data. And in 2013, the privacy ordinance, there were amendments to the ordinance to clamp down on that. And how come that the prosecution number is not that high? Well, we do have an ordinance, but then it's difficult for us to enforce the law because some of the calls are made from overseas. So that's why we have to tackle the root of the problem. We have to know what is the gist of the problem and then try to target it. So that's why the first step that we are proposing is that we should conduct a comprehensive survey. Ms. Claudia Mo, I agree fully with Mr. Ronnie Tong. Well, the industry is causing so much nuisance, and you shouldn't be using the excuse of affecting people's livelihood of not phasing out the activities. And you also said that there are great problems in enforcing the law. Calls are made from the mainland, and also calls made anonymously, and so on. And there is another sector which is engaged in frequently in such activities. It's from the beauty sector. Well, if we're talking about unemployment, an NGO has recently set up a restaurant which hires particularly the hearing impaired. So I think the government can think about such proposals or such business startups. Well, you said that the number of complaints has continuously dropped, and you said that regulation has proved effectively. People are just giving up on complaining. I have complained before myself, but I think it is of no avail. So I gave up on complaining altogether. You should not use the statistics as an excuse not to step up your regulation. And you said that there are 20,000 people engaged in the industry. And sometimes you said that we are almost have full employment. I don't know what you're driving at.
Now you say the financial industry calls you, they will tell you the name of brokerage house or the name of the bank. Why should I know you are David Wong and where do you come from? Say the DBS Bank was mentioned today. Its reputation is therefore affected. And there may just be name dropping. Now the trade associations claim that there is self-regulation and there will not be excessive activities. But what about the non-members of the trade associations? If they are not members, then how can the trade association regulate them? Now, this is not right, and there is a gray area. And there are calls from the mainland, but from the call, you can see that is a number. From the indication, you can see that the number is a Hong Kong number. Now, can we just stop or prohibit this P2P call? When there is a report, then you'll be held liable, criminally liable. Will you consider that? That's my first question. The second question is this. Now the survey will be completed in the middle of this year. Then you consider the way forward. You welcome suggestions. Now when you go to legislate, you need to write up a lot of things. Do you have a timetable? You only have 30 seconds left. The secretary. Ms. Mo probably entered the venue late. I've already said that we have an open mind. We have kept an eye on the problem. And 90% of such calls related to these 4 trades. Initially, there is a code of practice regulating each trade, and we still heard that there are complaints against such nuisance, and we therefore need to conduct a survey so that we can target our measures at the problems. We are working on it actively. Thank you. We should have we should end the discussion at 20 to 4, and we still have 4 more members on the line. I draw a line there. If members don't ask for a second round, and then afterwards, if you want to have a second round, you will be given 2 minutes each. Mr. Leung Sheng, we have discussed that at length. I didn't intend to speak. My voice isn't good today, but many members are interested on this issue. Everybody claims to be a victim, so you suffer the nuisance. Now this is a business activity, so who are the beneficiaries? If there are victims only, then the business shouldn't have existed. There shouldn't be any business if everybody is a victim. So I doubt who are the beneficiaries. As for the banking sector, if we keep making calls and nobody doing other things, then we can't exist. Now you mentioned a bank. Then the government should look into that. Now many banks, many victims mention your name, so you can talk to the bank. It's not an interference. It's just showing concern. Is it that bank is in trouble and therefore it can only resort to this? Is it business promotion, or is it an infringement of privacy, or infringement of what? You have to clarify this. Mr. Ronnie Tong mentioned that they bought telephone numbers. Then you should report to the police. If they breach the law, then arrest them. Where do they get the numbers? We don't know. If there is an institution doing this business, if it's a business, what income does it have? People do pay them. It must be a viable business since it has been the business has been there for such a long period of time. Shouldn't there be a survey and then give the findings to the public and this council? We cannot just claim that we are all victims and ask the administration to do this and do that, and the administration just says that it can only do this and not that. Now, what about the practice in other countries? When such nuisances arise, what are their ways of dealing with such nuisance? And what are the penalties and what are the laws? Will the administration also tell us information? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Ng, for the question. As for the beneficiaries, there must be a business incentive before such calls are made. In our 2008 survey, 21% of the interviewees did conduct business transactions through such calls. According to the survey done by the Privacy Commissioner, 16% did engage in transactions arising from these calls. So there are business activities going on arising from such calls. As for international practice, we look at the practice of other places, see how they regulate such calls. In Japan, there is no regulation on P2P marketing. Different places have different needs and different measures, and the survey will also cover this. Mr. Lo Ko-hong. I heard from the secretary that he has an open mind. That's indeed ridiculous. You adopt an open mind and we suffer. The members of the whole council are yelling and complaining. I think the matter is very simple. If it's about employment, there are employees working on these jobs. You need to keep this business, then you still have to regulate the business. I just take it that you're right. Then how are you going to regulate it? You haven't told us. At present, the regulation is very weak. You say if the coal is made from a source outside Hong Kong, you can't do anything about it. Well, if the coal is made outside Hong Kong, how can that business create jobs for local people? You need to enforce the law in order to block it, because it is not creating any job in Hong Kong. As for jobs, you can invent a business. We ask you to set up a community nanny scheme. There are a lot of things to do in Hong Kong. If you mean business, you say there aren't enough homes, there aren't enough RCHEs, then you provide daycare. Well, you can't get enough manpower. All right, Ms. Cheng, you're right. Now, this business is hurting people. They want to cut costs. They just keep calling you. If you ask some people to do cold call in the street, that is difficult. You need higher pay and you have lower efficiency. If you do if you just catch people in the street and do your marketing. Is this business promotion desirable? Can you condemn it? Say, can you condemn the DBS Bank? The DBS Bank was in serious trouble in terms of selling the Lehman Brothers mini bonds. Now they called you. You had a present. We had a present for you, and then the old lady went to the bank and then got the present, which was just a diary, and then she bought a financial product, and she was in trouble. If you ask people to do face-to-face marketing, then that is to upgrade the skills. Why you allow them to make P2P calls? You just like a recorder in human flesh, like Stephen Lam. You can't really resist. Has he returned? In fact, he can be a consultant. He's a recorder in human flesh. Just tell me, do you think the business sector using this way to do marketing is useless? It is not efficient, it is not productive, it is not a good job for young people, and therefore the government doesn't recommend it. And you hope that people can hear this message. Will you say that? You only have 20 seconds left. Answer me, gentlemen. We want to reduce the nuisance caused upon the citizens. I seldom agree with Mr. Leung, but I agree with him. If we can upgrade the labor force, and then if we can allow upward mobility, give young people a better job, I fully agree with that. Mr. Michael Tian, Mr. Chen Chi-chun, though has raised his hand, but we have already drawn a line. But Mr. Mok will give 2 minutes to Mr. Chen. Mr. Michael Tian, I'm glad we have a chance to look into that in depth. In fact, last year on the 26th of November, on the 20th of November, I put an oral question to the administration, but time was very limited at that time. At that meeting, the administration said that it would look into the economic impacts of regulating the P2P calls. I'm glad to hear from members that They basically support the line of questioning I adopted at the LegCo meeting. Let's talk about nuisance. The Secretary said that there are 4 trade associations regulating their members, and we should give them a chance. I receive calls whether I have interest receiving facial, and then whether I want a loan or whether I get a I want to have a uterus inspection. In fact, or cervical inspection. But I'm a man, right? They just don't care. So what kind of regulation are they doing? Now, there are do not call lists in many foreign countries. Say Canada has a do not call list. If I put my name on the do not call list, and if somebody calls me, makes cold calls, then there will be a fine to the tune of 15,000 Canadian dollars. In Singapore, the fine seems to be 1 million, which is too alarming, which is very alarming. So many countries have already set up their do not call list. If you call, then a fine we impose. It's easy to do. I just record this call. I know the number, and then I make a report. But the Secretary only says that there is no such restriction in Japan. Even if we don't make our recommendation on behalf of the citizens, if the administration takes initiative and knows that there are so many advanced countries have adopted a DNC and only Japan doesn't have a DNC, why don't we follow other countries? Why don't you take the initiative to set up a DNC? Have you finished? These countries should have considered the economic impacts. They do have people making calls, tens of thousands of people making calls for a living.
Mr. Michael Tan mentioned about the calls he received, and that those may come from the call centers, one of the 4 major sectors. We need the consultant to help us out to look in depth at the mechanism in other jurisdictions. And in Singapore, the registers don't cover the business numbers. It just covers private numbers. When there is a breach of regulation, 10,000 Singaporean dollars is the fine. So different jurisdictions have different mechanisms in place based on their own situations. So this time we would like to find out more on the situation in Hong Kong before mapping out the way forward. My question is, since so many other jurisdictions have such registers, how come that the government is not taking the initiative? Well, Madam Chair, we are taking the initiative this time to look at what's happening in other jurisdictions. Mr. Raymond Chan, I thank Mr. Charles Mock. Well, there was a domestic violence meeting next door. There was a clash of the meeting. I don't agree that we should not, we should not be sacrificing the interests of the public in order to maintain the business opportunities, maintain the business operation. And you just allow them, say, several years to change their business mode before you impose restrictions. I don't think they would do that. They would just do it at the last minute. And the nuisance is caused at the very minute when the call is made. We may have installed some blocking apps to identify some telemarketing calls, and we don't receive them. We may already do that. But, well, what's more irritating is that actually some callers can actually name your last name. And so behind it, there must have already been transactions of telephone numbers. And that is a blatant breach of privacy. And that is most irritating to members of the public. You've received calls from very unrelated organizations, which can actually name your name. Well, how come that our telephone numbers fall into these organizations? I would also like to say regulation to cover political parties. And actually, the political parties may get your phone numbers from some other sister organizations which have your phone number. So I think political parties should also come under the regulation. I think we can also have a code of practice for political parties as well. So these are the opinions I would like to express. Thank you. Mr. Chan, if the caller can name your name, is already under the definition of personal data, and we do have an ordinance to regulate that. What about just the last name, the surname? Well, it depends on the situation. Well, but how come that we still have a very low prosecution number? It's exactly because although we do have an ordinance, we have difficulties in enforcing the law. And I also mentioned about employment. The information on hand shows that a number of the employees are disabled persons, and we have to be very careful. Therefore, why can't they switch jobs? As one member said, we have to look at the profile of these employees. Well, Secretary, you said that the survey will be completed in the first half of 2015. When do you expect you will come back to update us? We hope that by the end of this year or early next year, we will come back to share with you the results of the survey and our preliminary proposals. You said that this survey is on whether there should be further regulation. If, say, you come back at the end of this year, when do you expect that you would be coming up with proposals on regulations? Madam Chair, we first have to look at the results of the survey before we come up with the right solutions and the right proposals. Well, thank you, Secretary. We hope that you could come back as soon as you can to share with us the survey findings. Let's move on to item 6, and that is digital terrestrial television DTT analog switch off. I would like to welcome the administration and the AFCA representatives for joining us in this meeting. So can we ask the AFCA representatives to come in, please? Members, we have to hand over the room at 4:30 a.m. to another meeting. We can't extend the meeting time. So I'll see how many members are interested in raising questions, and then I'll impose a time limit on your speaking time. First of all, I would like the administration and the AFCA representative to take us through the paper, and then I'll hand over the floor to members. Who to take us through the brief? Permanent Secretary, please. Madam Chair, members, last year, December, the government decided that the ASO analog switch off time should be deferred to 2020, and the ASO working target should be reviewed in 2017-18. The free-to-air television services in Hong Kong is very widespread and has been here for over 40 years. Recently, people have been switching to DTT, and if we stop analog TV altogether, it will create an impact on people. In September 2014, around 20% or 480,000 households have yet to switch to DTT. So if we stop analog TV in the middle of this year, they have to install set-top box or buy some new TV sets before they can watch TV. So they have to give up on analog TV. Now, changing analog TV to TTT can have enhanced picture quality and features. Another advantage is that we can release some spectrum for mobile telecommunications services. We do have a strong demand on that side, and on this we have to coordinate with the mainland authorities so that there will not be radio frequency interference. We know that the mainland before 2020 doesn't have any plan to end analog TV. So even if we have the ASO in the middle of this year, we will not be able to make use of the spare spectrum and get the digital dividend. And more importantly, a lot of people have not yet get adequate preparation for DTT. So after considering all factors, we have decided to defer the ASO to 2020. And then, as mentioned, in 2017-18, we will conduct a review to see how it is going before we come up with a final date of ASO. During the interim period, we will continue to promote DTT, to popularize it, and we will continue to coordinate with the mainland authorities on spectrum use. Mr. Charles Mark, Mr. Tam Yu Chong, Ms. Claudia Mo, and Dr. N. Chang, have you raised your hand? No? First of all, Ms. Claudia Mo. Ms. Mo first. This deferment is reasonable. Close to 500,000 households have not yet made the switch, so you can't just force through the switch. My question is, now with this deferment, ATV and TVB were given more time to expand their DTT network and improve their network. But now we are facing the situation where ATV is in serious financial difficulties, and we don't know yet whether the license will be renewed. So the situation of ATV and also for your decision on the deferment, I mean, how do these two affect each other? I mean, is this a factor in your deferment decision? When we made the decision, the TV stations, operating situations have nothing to do with our decision. Ms. Mo mentioned about expanding the network of DTT, of the two TV stations. Last time when we were here at the panel, the network coverage was around 89%, not as good as present day. Now it's 99%, and still there are still remote areas which are not accessible or not covered. If we defer the ASO by 5 years, then we can cover the remaining 1%. Well, ASO and the renewal of free-to-air TV licenses are not related. Well, in the case that, say, one free-to-air TV station is not will not exist, well, you will still go ahead with the ASO. Well, there would not be any sort of blows dealt to your plan, right? Well, that will not be any impact. Well, if their license is not stopped, then they will continue with their operation. Mr. Charles Mark, I think everything gets procrastinated, I think. People may not know what is digital dividend, and that is, if we don't retrieve the spectrum earlier, we cannot release it for some other uses. And especially for the mobile, in future, mobile telecommunication services. When we auction the 3G spectrum, we said that we don't have enough spectrum, and in the next few years there won't be any spectrum auctioned. So that's why we want to release the spectrum as soon as we can. Now, the paper mentions that people are not prepared yet, and there is this last group of households which have not yet made the switch. Well, very often, this is the most there will be a lot of difficulties for this group to switch. Well, if we want to have this digital dividend, we can do measures like subsidizing these households to make the switch. We can narrow the digital divide, and also we can get the spectrum back earlier. We can supply more spectrum for other users, and the costs can be driven down. And 3G, 4G, and 5G will not come with such exorbitant costs in the future. So I think we should make the best use of this opportunity and try to come up with some incentives to expedite the switch of these remaining households. Another hurdle seems to be the coordination with the mainland authorities. If, say, in the North District we haven't made the switch, and then, we have made the switch, and the mainland authorities haven't done so, then there may be interference. So If the mainland drags its feet, then we will be made to drag our feet as well. So in terms of coordination with the mainland, are there any concrete measures? Is there a specific timetable that things for expediting things? Now, if the mainland authorities drag the project beyond 2020, what will we do? We don't know. Or alternatively, can we do it by district? And we should not be affected by the mainland authorities. With regard to the coordination with the mainland authorities, Mr. Charles Mok mentioned whether we can do it by district, or is it just that the North District will be affected by the mainland in radio frequency interference? Now, if we just unilaterally have ASO, the spectrum released will be affected by the mainland frequency, because we really need to coordinate with them. To my understanding, in the U.S., they have a similar coordination with Mexico, and the same goes for Malaysia and Singapore. So coordination is a very ordinary thing among different jurisdictions. And Mr. Charles Mok asked whether there are measures to expedite people using or switching to DDT. And when we look back at past records, if there are attractive programs like the Olympic Games or football matches, there will be greater incentive for people to switch to later models of television sets. And in 2009, half of the TV sets sold on the market are digital and the other half analog TV sets. And a TV set's lifespan is around 10 years.
So the TV sets are still operating well. A natural replacement cycle is the issue. Well, I still have some time left. So you don't want to speed up the process. I don't know whether you have enabled, you have analyzed the profile of the families. Is it because they're poor, they belong to the grassroots, and therefore they don't replace the TV sets, or because the TV sets are still operating well and therefore they don't replace them? We have no specific analysis. Yeah, you better do it. Now, there are grassroots families who don't believe they should invest in digital TV, in a digital TV set. In 2017-18, we conduct a review. Such issues will be considered. And if we are to switch off, we have to consider whether there are ways and means to smooth out the process. Mr. Tam Yu-chung. The administration has given two reasons. 480,000 families have not replaced their TV sets. I think that's easy to solve. We can do publicity beforehand, and as for those who don't have money to replace the TV sets, then the NGOs can help them with a top set box or help them replace a new TV set. I think the coordination with Guangdong is a bigger issue. They will only switch off in 2020. So there is a delay of 5 years. Will Guangdong advance the timetable? I don't know. If they advance the timetable, then we can advance our timetable too. In order to coordinate with Guangdong, even if we switch off now, we may not be able to reap the benefits. It seems that we can't solve the problem, despite talking about it. Is it a fact? The Secretary. Mr. Tam is right. There are 480,000 households. who will be affected. And if we switch off and we can't get much benefit from the digital dividend. In terms of coordination, under the International Telecommunication Union, between 698 and 806 MHz megahertz, they are for communication. 470 to 889. It's still, the spectrum has not been decided. Now, considering the U.S. is using 698 and megahertz and around for communication. In 2015, there will be discussion on whether new spectrum spectra will be provided for communications. From 70 to 806, we can consider how much of the spectrum can be used for communications, and some can be used for other means, for other things. And that will also help in respect of the supply of the spectrum. We'll continue to work with Guangdong. This is a fact. We need to have good coordination, otherwise there will be interference. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok. I think it's not desirable to defer the switch-off by 4 years. The administration says 480,000 households have not switched to digital TV. What is the rate of decline per year for using analog TVs? After 5 years, there are still 480,000 households using analog TV. Are you going to delay the switch-off? Guangdong will stop analog broadcasts in 2020. What are the reasons for that? What problems are there for them? We want to know the reasons. If we understand the problems, then we can try to coordinate with them. In fact, the mainland wants to advance the introduction of digital broadcasting. I don't know their situation. I don't know whether you know their situation. As for penetration rate, there is progress. It's not too bad. In 2008, when we start, the penetration rate was 32%. In 2011, 68%. In 2014, end of 2014, more than 80%. So the penetration rate is rising. And I believe in the process of replacing TV sets, the penetration rate will go up. At present, there are 480,000 households having analog TV sets. As for the mainland, well, if we have a coverage problem and a penetration problem, then I believe in Guangdong, which is much bigger than Hong Kong, also faces the same problems. I don't fully understand the situation, but these are the things they would consider. The ITU has decided to release the part of the spectrum for communications. The digital dividend is there for all to see, and they really want to move forward. Well, if we have a penetration problem, then they will have an even bigger penetration problem. In the mainland, if they want to promote a new policy, they provide incentives which are more active than those in Hong Kong. If they are convinced that digital broadcasting is more efficient and effective, they will be very positive in advancing the process. And we can consider the same, as said by Mr. Tam Yu-chung. Can the two places discuss and join hands to promote this possibility? Say, subsidizing each household by $1,000 costs you just $480 million, and that can advance the process by 5 years, and the benefits obtained will be more than $480 million. Same for the mainland. we should be more active or more proactive instead of just waiting for the clock to keep ticking. Well, in talking with the mainland, we try to understand what are their concerns. And in coming 5 years, let's don't say 5 years, but in the near future, we'll continue to do that. Coordination is important, and we'll keep talking. We keep talking to the mainland colleagues, and if we can do, we'll do that. Mr. Lower-Kok. Thank you, Chairman. We can't switch off in 2015 for various reasons, and they're very clear. First, about 20% of the population, about 480,000 households, are still receiving analog TV signals. If we switch off, then if we want the spectrum to be usable, then we need a similar action in the mainland. Otherwise, in Guangdong, otherwise we can't get the digital dividend. As for the situation in Guangdong, Mr. Ma has already asked the question. I am concerned, like other members, about the local users. My experience in the district councils was that there are many grassroots families in the districts. There are elderly people who do not keep up with the change in communication equipment. They really hold on to the analog TV set, and even if the TV set doesn't work, they may not be able to replace it with a new one. Many may not be catch up with the state-of-the-art digital equipment. If some elderly don't have the money to pay for a new TV set, then what can we do? If you don't deal with it in 2015, you are going to conduct a review in 2017-18, you still have the same problem. And that's the digital divide. Some families aren't like us. They cannot catch up with the progress in information technology. So at the end of the day, we have to give support to these families. I just want to know whether the administration has a plan in mind. If not, then would the administration actively consider this? The Secretary, concerning the set-top boxes, about a year ago, the cost of a set-top box is about $500 odd. Now it's about $400 odd. Same for a drop in price. Same for digital TV. A 22-inch TV set is about $1,900. In overseas countries, when they did the analog switch off, they did provide an allowance to the families in need. In 2017-18, whether there is such a need to provide an assistance, and whether and what sort of assistance will be given, we will consider this. At the end of the day, you cannot have 100% of the users switching to digital broadcasts. When the number has declined to a very low level, we may have to consider assistance measures. The Bureau should work with the District Council and the district offices Some elderly people may be able to afford a set-top box which costs a few $100s, and they're willing to pay for it so that they can have the only kind of entertainment. But they don't know how to do it. They really don't know how to do it, and they need help, not just in form of money. But that should be part of your work. Mr. Chen Chi-chun, according to the government's paper, Guangdong will switch off analog broadcasts by 2020, the earliest. If Guangdong cannot switch off, then it will not be effective in making good use of the spectrum and in reaping the digital dividend. Now you say 2020 the earliest. There may be a delay then. So if they delay, then we will have to delay as well. That's the first question. The second question is on the subsidy or allowance for buying a new TV set. The NGOs may help, and the CCF may help. Say after several years, there may just be a few tens of thousands who need help. But apart from money, there should also be technical support. We really don't know how to. They really don't know how to tune the TV sets. Say some elderly people living alone don't understand how to tune their TV sets. They only know how to switch on and switch off the TV. Some even don't dare to switch to another channel. And if ATV folds up, then we only have two channels, Pearl and TVB, Pearl and also Jade. Two channels and no more. Now, is it possible for you to provide a choice to those receiving analog broadcasts? As for technical support in overseas countries, in the later stage, it's not just giving money to help. Technical support is necessary. Say for RTHK, is working on digital broadcasting. Some are unable to receive the broadcast. Some elderly are unable to receive broadcasts. When the RTHK staff did the promotion, they even sent their staff to visit the elderly and help them to do the tuning.
Well, with regard to technical support, if we do need to do that, then we will definitely consider it. Mr. Chen also came up with this very interesting hypothetical scenario, whether RTHK can do analog TV or provide analog TV services. We haven't considered it, but I would assume that we don't have such the relevant equipment, so that may be a problem. And also for RTHK, we produce 6 hours of programs every day, so we can't have a full station, so to speak. Are you in a passive position? So if the mainland authorities postpone it to a few years later, then we should also postpone it to a few years later. The greatest benefit from implementing ASO is the digital dividend. Now, if we don't reap a digital dividend and it's causing nuisance to people, then I don't think it's worth pursuing or implementing. But conversely, if a majority of the households can watch the DTT, then the consideration may be different. Well, technological developments are fast these days. Now, say if we have 200,000 households remaining, we say we can set a certain date for the ASO, and if you don't make the switch, then you still have to spend some money in broadcasting analog TV. What is the cost of doing that? The cost to the public, personally, I believe that it's not a question of money. The question is whether it will create a nuisance. No, Mr. Yu Si-wing. Well, after going through so much, there are still some 480,000 households not using DTT. There are a number of elderly people in Hong Kong who are accustomed to choosing channels by the number 1, 2, 3, 4, and then all of a sudden they're made to switch to channel 81, and they have to install set-top boxes, install new TV sets. They would rather stay with the old method. And elderly people rely a lot on the TV for entertainment, switching among the 4 channels. And if you cancel analog TV all of a sudden, and there are no support measures for them, then I don't think it's good, and I don't support it. A number of elderly people will be affected adversely. So I don't know. I wonder whether the administration has made an analysis or assessment among these 480,000 households. How many of them are accustomed to analog TV and they prefer not to change their habit? And if you are really to work on this group, what would you consider using a targeted approach, say working with community bodies, providing assistance, providing subsidy, so that the elderly people can adapt it to the new technology gradually? We're talking about tens of thousands of elderly people here. We haven't made that kind of analysis, but then on a regular basis, we compile certain statistics. And next time, in the next several years, when we compile statistics, perhaps we can add those questions in. And that would also help in our review of the target working day in 2017-18. Madam Chair, I really hope that they can come up with an analysis. I don't want elderly people to be affected. If we really have to spend money to teach them how to make the switch, or even buy TV sets or the equipment for them, then I think that should be done if needed. Mr. Charles Mock. 2 questions here. Would more incentives to be provided to expedite the switch? Second, I've asked the Permanent Secretary, you haven't have a good understanding of the situation. What kind of households have not made the switch? We thought it would be the grassroots families and the elderly people, and they're just using the old model because their TV sets are still working well. I think you should try to proceed with the study as soon as possible to understand the situation. The next issue has to do with the coordination with mainland authorities. It's no good that Hong Kong switches and mainland authorities don't. And members are concerned, say, if there is further delay after 2020, what will happen? My thinking is that we should resolve our own problems first. Well, the initial estimate that they would do it in the year 2020, the earliest. And the secretary said that, we can do that by time, and then we have more time to deal with the situation of the problems. Mr. Ma Feng-kwok just now mentioned that the policies on the mainland may change very fast. Well, the authorities may perhaps give several $1,000s to each household to replace their TV sets. That can happen. The digital TV sets and the set-top boxes are very inexpensive, and they may even give them out free just to get the subscription contract with the household. So you can never be sure that the policies can change on the mainland, and they can then progress all of a sudden very fast. So let's cast aside the year 2020 and think about buy time. Let's resolve the first problem first. We want to provide a new technology for them so that they can enjoy better service. And this is a good thing. And elderly people would like to watch quality programs, etc. Well, like programs like those nostalgic programs produced by ATV. So this is my suggestion. When the government considers the issue, don't lump the two problems together and then think that the latter factor will allow you to buy time. I don't think that should be the approach. We should first deal with the first problem first. Try to expedite the switch as soon as possible, and then we would then deal with the coordination with the mainland authorities. Well, what if they just suddenly speed up things at the mainland? Then what should we do? We are not waiting for the mainland authorities to inform us as to what they're doing. We do have regular liaison with the mainland authorities, and we've been asking them time and again whether there would be possibility of expediting things at the mainland. And I mentioned that in 2017-18, we will look at the situation then and how far we have progressed before we decide on the way forward. So the two factors, well, not trying to lump the two factors together. The next one, Mr. Lam Kwok Hong, the last one, or rather, Madam Chair. You are discussing with the mainland authorities, and the mainland authorities will tell you what they will do. And they said that before 2020, they will not go for DTT. But we want to do the best job here in Hong Kong, isn't it? We don't object to DTT. The earlier, the better. The earlier we do it, the better. But then when we are proceeding with DTT, a number of households are still using analog TV. We try to resolve the problem, their problem. I think we should look at things the other way around. The elderly people should, at the end of the day, face up the problem or the issue. Now, in the unfortunate event of the elderly people passing away, they would not be able to watch DTT, perhaps at all. So, well, there may be a sudden change in mainland authorities, and they may suddenly expedite things. I don't think you should not be sort of led by them. What's the problem of proceeding or doing it faster than them first? It's already 2014. You should try to convince the elderly that DTT will bring benefits to them and they should switch to DTT. Well, you should do that. I don't follow your logic. How come that you think you can take things slowly? Well, the slower you do it, what benefits are you going to bring to Hong Kong? We're talking about 480,000 households. That is a result of our survey. We're not trying to procrastinate here. With regard to ASO, we first floated the idea 8 years ago, and we achieved penetration rate of 80% in 8 years' time. So we are not moving too slowly on that front. Other jurisdictions are doing poorer than us. Now, If we do it unilaterally on the side of Hong Kong, and we're not reaping the full benefits, then I don't think it's worth it. Well, if you can bring DTT to these 480,000 households, and it's a good thing. It's just that the elderly people are not accustomed to DTT, or they don't want to spend extra on it. Well, it's not the case that the elderly people are telling you that they must stick to analog TV. They may still want to switch to DTT. It's just that they have some other concerns. You said that we are faring better than overseas jurisdictions. So can you do a better job on what you have achieved? Well, you've got 40 seconds left, Permanent Secretary. I appreciate Mr. Leung's point. It's not that we can't do an even better job. I just want to point out that we are not acting particularly slowly. So we are finished with agenda item 5, agenda item 6. No AOB, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.